In April of 1996, several friends from Elizabeth City, North Carolina planned an unusual journey. Part family vacation, part spiritual quest, this pilgrimage would take them from the North Carolina coast to the foothills of Rolla, Missouri.
We're going to talk to Spirit.
Well, we're Ted and Cindy Pepper, and we're about to go check out a phenomenon that apparently has been ongoing since 1961 down in Missouri. Some sort of a intelligence entity, some sort of something from the other side that seems to be communicating through raps, and also has the ability to make things move, psychokinesis.
When Ted and Cindy Pepper first learned about the Society for Research on Rapport and Telekinesis, called by the acronym SORRAT, SORRAT, the couple knew they needed to make this pilgrimage. They were eager to meet members of the spiritualist group that had been congregating for more than 30 years. Some of this eagerness was due to the large number of unusual and unexplained events in their own home. Barbie dolls that talked, candles that lit themselves, toys that had been packed away in the attic only to mysteriously reappear in other rooms. These unexplained events drove the Peppers to look for answers, or at least to find a community of people with similar experiences.
It was a little spring wind-up toy that played Babes in Toyland. And that thing its spring had sprung like a year and a half earlier, and we had it stashed in an upstairs unused bedroom. Well, one night, Cindy woke up in bed next to me. I was still asleep, but she woke me up, and I heard the tail ends of this tinkling music of Babes in Toyland. She had been woke up by it playing very, very fast, the tinkling sound of Babes in Toyland, and had been playing for 20 minutes, even when the thing worked. The spring only allowed it to play for probably 3 minutes maximum, maybe 2 minutes. And she laid in bed and listened to the thing until she woke me up. She, I guess, didn't have enough nerve to walk down and look for wherever it might have been, but she woke me up, and we both did. As soon as we started walking down towards the room, it quit. And sure enough, there it was, sitting up on a dresser in this unused bedroom, sitting up on top of the dresser. But nobody was around. The kids were asleep. It was late at night.
At night one time, she was bothering me. I took her up to Mom.
On May 12, 1996, Ted and Cindy packed their 2 young daughters and 18-day-old son into a van. Accompanied by their good friend, Justine Albertson, researcher Jim McLennan, and the video crew behind this camera, the Peppers began a long and difficult caravan west. Their destination would be the home of Dr. John Thomas Richards and his wife Elaine, who were among the first members of SORRAT. The Peppers had learned about this group from Dr. Jim McLennan, who researches unusual phenomena.
He suggested a phenomenon that he was aware of that had been happening in Missouri since 1961, that he had gone down to investigate himself, and simply said, "You want to see it?" And we said, "Sure."
In the early 1980s, Dr. McLennan had visited Thomas Richards and other members of SORRAT as part of a participant observation study. He was eager to repeat the study with other groups of people like the Peppers and their friend Justine.
My name is Justine Albertson, and I'm going to Rolla to investigate an alleged spiritual event.
Where are we going tomorrow? What are we going to see?
We're going to find clues.
Clues?
Yeah,
Clues to what?
a mystery.
As the travelers loaded the last of the luggage, a drizzling rain began to taper off. It seemed like a good omen for the journey west.
We're rolling down the road going to Rolla, Missouri. Because that's where the raps are. Spirits rap in Rolla, Missouri. People want to believe in miracles, or they have this quest for miracles. And so that's why some people are willing to go to Rolla, Missouri to see them. You don't see them every day.
My question is, why are the spirits interested in Rolla, Missouri?
Because that's where Neihart was retired in Columbia, Missouri, and that's where he started the group in 1961. And Tom Richards lives in Rolla, Missouri, and so that's where the phenomenon is happening. It seems to me it's certainly the most active case of psychokinesis in the United States that's going on right now. I can't promise anything, but I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't hear rapping sounds, if we didn't hold up one of these ESP PK sessions and hear rapping sounds coming out of the floor. That wouldn't surprise me. They'll probably put their hands on the table and the table will jump around, and as long as people's hands are on the table, you can't be certain that the people aren't pushing the table around, but I think that the table will vibrate rapidly, and the people whose hands are on the table will be impressed with how rapidly it vibrates. There's a kind of energy that's in the table. This is kind of a pilgrimage, you know. I've been going to this place by myself for Lord knows how many times. I've lost count the number of times I've gone. Now I get to observe other people when they're on their first visit, so it's a good ethnographic research.
Dr. McLennan has engaged in participant observation of paranormal phenomenon for over 17 years. He observes what he calls the shamantic complex. The shamantic complex is a set of traits that includes hypnotizability, disassociative ability, and a propensity to report paranormal phenomena. Dr. McLennan argues that these attributes have a genetic basis. The shamantic complex sometimes leads to the formation of groups like the Surrett. Certain people, such as Ted and Cindy Pepper, have a propensity for paranormal experience. In traditional societies, these individuals would be socialized into shamantic roles. They become spiritual healers or advisors. In contemporary societies, people exhibiting the shamantic complex will attempt to learn more about their paranormal experiences.
The people who are participating in this group they're not mentally disordered. There's nothing wrong with them. They're just having these particular experiences. It's very natural and normal for them to be interested in it and to continue participating because of their experiences, not because they suffer from some kind of strange deprivation or something's lacking in their personalities or something along those lines.
The caravan would travel 2 full days before reaching Missouri. At a motel on the first night of the journey, Justine read her tarot cards, hoping to get some clues about the outcome of this trip. According to Justine's tarot reading, some family members at home didn't want loved ones to go to Rolla. She predicted this would be an expedition with numerous frustrations and thwarted goals, but would ultimately have a good result. As the children made ready for bed in a strange hotel room, Ted explained that he had no worries about exposing the girls to the mysteries of a spiritualist group.
We don't have any qualms about exposing our children to any of this phenomenon because, again, we're not afraid of it, and there's nothing evil or no sense of foreboding that seems to be connected with it.
Travel began early the next morning, but by the time they reached St. Louis, the group had already missed some of the worst hazards of a road trip.
The major thing now is just handling the basic traveling stress of getting to where we're going. I believe that once we get to where we're going and sort of camp out in one motel room for 2 or 3 days, that some of the traveling stress will come down and we won't be forced to have to get up so early and hit the road in order to get to the next place that we have to get to that day.
We're going to talk to spirits.
You want to talk to spirits? Now, what do you think that the spirits might have to tell you?
I don't know.
Late that night, the travelers arrived at the Richards house, where they met Tom, Elaine, and Ivan, Tom and Elaine's son, and a second-generation Surrett. After a rest and a visit, the visitors toured the basement, where Tom Richards had developed an isolation room. Here the Surrett members would meet for levitation experiments and to hear raps from spirits, such as the spirit of Black Elk, a famous Indian shaman. One of the spirits that the Elizabeth City group hoped to hear from was John G. Neihart. the founder of the Surratt Group. Neihardt, the Poet Laureate of Nebraska and Poet Laureate of the Plain States, spent a great deal of time with the shamans of the Omaha and Sioux Indians. He acknowledged the paranormal activities he experienced in his famous book, Black Elk Speaks. Tom Richards, one of Neihardt's students in the early days of Surratt, explained why Dr. Neihardt started this group. It was Dr. Neihardt's curiosity about the paranormal and a spirit flight he experienced during a fevered dream that led him to investigate the ghost dance of the Oglala Sioux.
He was already interested from the standpoint of American Indian culture. He lived among the Omaha, and he lived among the Sioux, and was in fact Black Elk's spiritual son.
By 1961, Dr. Neihardt had begun to assemble the young men and women that would become the Society for Research on Rapport and Telekinesis. With this group, Neihardt attempted to create spiritualist phenomena he had encountered among the Indians.
He would invite us to sit around a wooden table and rest our hands lightly on it and just see what happened. And at first nothing did happen except building the rapport which he felt was necessary for any group that intended to survive. There have been many groups which met only for the wondrous events involved, but did not actually have a close tie to one another as people. And he felt that the two had to go together. In fact, the rapport, from his point of view, was more important than the psychokinesis, the raps, or any of the other things that happened.
After developing sufficient rapport, members of Dr. Neihardt's group began to have unusual experiences. They heard raps coming from the walls and floors and observed what they believed was psychokinetic phenomena such as levitation, teleportations, and matter passing through matter. Soon after Surratt began meeting, Tom's wife, Elaine, joined the group.
We usually met on a Friday night. It was pretty regular. And I know the first meeting that we went, I was hoping, because I had never seen it, I hope I wouldn't be a hindrance to it.
Because they documented and investigated their own experiences, Surratt members began to refer to these sessions as experiments. Members documented experiments in their journals and took Polaroid photographs of levitating tables and dolls walking on the ceiling. Dr. Richards has photo albums of levitating tables dating back to the early days of Surratt.
How did you come to use TV trays?
Well, we were really getting a little concerned about Dr. Neihardt's furniture. We started out with about a 40-pound square wooden table. There's a picture of it in there, but with big clawed feet that went out like that. And of course, when it was dancing around, we tried very hard to keep it from getting a toe under it.
Oh, yeah. Did you ever get a toe brush?
No, but we considered the possibility. And when it'd get up and it'd guard in and it'd drop, of course, it'd crack the wood. So we once saw an 80-pound dining table, a 6-legged dining table. Did you see it there at Skyrim? Mm-hmm. It got up to the ceiling and then fell and broke 2 of the legs off.
As the years passed and the group acquired a reputation, various parapsychologists came to study and to debunk what the group claimed to experience. In 1969, Dr. Edward Cox, a specialist on psychokinesis from the Rhine Foundation at Duke University, came to investigate. This video of Dr. Cox, taken before he died, shows a research device he created, what he called a mini-lab, for testing psychokinetic phenomena. This was an inverted aquarium secured to a solid base. Dr. Cox wired one version of the mini-lab with an electrical switch that would trigger a film camera to operate whenever something moved inside the mini-lab. Stephen J. Calvin, a current member of Surratt, assisted with these experiments.
The very first target object was a pencil wrapped with aluminum foil and sitting on 2 little wire stands connected to wires and hooked back to a relay. And if the pencil was lifted up
the circuit was broken, just like a burglar alarm, and it set off the camera.
What you're seeing now is some of the film footage that Steve Calvin and Edward Cox took in the 1970s. In this segment of the film, a balloon appears to inflate by itself. Sometimes a pin would float inside the mini-lab and write messages. In this segment of the film, rubber rings seem to move on their own, connect and disconnect. When Dr. Cox showed his footage to other parapsychologists, the footage was dismissed as crude stop-action or film animation technique. Contemporary audiences are too used to media special effects to accept this material as evidence of psychokinetic activity. In recent years, Surratt members disconnected the camera device, but have kept the mini-lab locked in the isolation room at the Richards house. Sometimes letters, pictures, and other objects mysteriously appear inside the mini-lab. Here, Justine holds a diagram that Surratt members believe spirits created and left inside the mini-lab. While the Peppers visited, a toy from their daughter's hamburger meal disappeared and reappeared the next day inside the locked mini-lab. The Surratt member who keeps the key to the mini-lab, Steve Calvin, unlocked it to retrieve the toy.
It was a telescope, and you can turn it into a flashlight, too.
And what happened to that toy?
We left it at Dr. Richards' house.
You left it at Dr. Richards' house? And then what happened to that toy?
The spirit found it and put it in a box and locked the box.
And were you able to get the toy out? How'd you get the toy out?
A man unlocked it.
Several of Ivan Richards' friends began meeting 3 years ago to form the next generation of Surratt. The second generation Surratts developed their own version of a mini-lab.
We put a spoon and a popsicle stick inside this bottle, closed it, sealed it with epoxy, and put a string around and painted it to ensure that you could tell whether or not the seal had been broken. And we put it in my room it was there for approximately a week. And when I came back from spring break, I went in and checked it out, and the spoon had been folded in 3 places.
I never knew it was unusual for things to appear and disappear out of a box, because since I was so young, I never was told. So naturally I grew up in what my friends have a tendency to say a unique atmosphere, to be able to experience phenomenon which would perhaps be very questionable to most anybody that did not experience it as a child.
A few weeks ago at our, the group that we had just gotten together, it was one of the girls likes the Wizard of Oz song, so a few Sundays there it was rapping out the Wizard of Oz at the beginning of each session, so that was kind of neat.
And the table would sometimes get up on the bed, dance around, and eventually it would make itself around the room on several occasions. We had a number of occasions when it would just levitate and would be able to take a picture of it by sitting on the bed and just taking a picture in this general direction, since it was in the dark.
Well, when you got your fingertips on it, and you have to stand up in order to keep your fingertips on top of it, and then you have to let go because you can't reach it no farther. And when Tom or someone takes a picture and you see the flash and and no one else is holding it, and when the picture comes back and you can see that no one's holding it, then you know. Then you know no one's just have their finger on the bottom of it, or it's all real. It's not a fake like some people think.
On their first night in Rolla, the North Carolina visitors participated in an experiment in the isolation room. Unfortunately, activity in the isolation room takes place in the dark. The video crew was unable to record anything useful on camera. Cindy explains.
But when Justine and I went into that room where things were happening, it was already dark because things had already started happening. I'd like to be able to see some things with my eyes.
While most of the recent phenomena the Surratt members experience occurs in absolute darkness of the isolation room, members also often heard raps coming from other locations.
I've heard raps in different people's homes. They don't want them to be there, but I've heard them. I've heard raps in churches.
It seems like Surratt and everyone else who's been doing this, for the most part, has been repeating the I guess you'd call it the table tipping experiments and things that, in a sense, have been done since at least the late 1800s.
This park is one of several places where Surratt members have had frequent experiences. Jim, Justine, the Peppers, the video crew, and some current members of Surratt visited the park hoping to experience raps or other PK activity. Nothing happened, so everyone ate hamburgers and went back to their hotel, where Justine read her cards again.
It's showing us in the beginning of our journey that we're having some little conflicts, some almost little obstacles cropping up that were hidden, that were unexpected. And this is like in the beginning. We're coming into it sort of like blindfolded. We really don't know what to expect. And what crosses us is a journey that's not been without a few little pitfalls. And it looks like here at some points there is despair.
For Ted and Cindy Pepper, the highlight of the trip was to be a visit to Skyrim Farm, where PK activity was purported to happen in broad daylight.
Skyrim was Dr. Neihart's home. He and his wife had purchased it back in 48, 47, in the late 40s. In fact, she had a vision or a dream about her next home, and she knew that that's where they'd be living.
Skyrim, in my opinion, seems to be kind of like a holy place, maybe a place that the other side can communicate through a lot better, I guess because the rapport that they've had so many people there, and with Neihart and Neihart's daughter and everything, they seem like they're real heavy on, communicating through the other side.
So it was some land and a farm or an acreage that Dr. Neihart had purchased.
In the public's eye, it's just a horse ranch, but a lot of other people know it as being more of a significant place.
Unfortunately, the visit wouldn't happen. At the last minute, a call came to Tom Richards denying his North Carolina guests access to the farm. The presence of a video camera and crew made Dr. Neihart's daughter uneasy. In the past, the purpose of these visits from outsiders had always been to make the group appear foolish or fraudulent. Some current members of Surratt were unwilling to take that risk again. Even without the video camera, the invitation to Skyrim was rescinded. The news came as a blow to the Peppers.
A trip from the East Coast through 3 or 4 states to come visit her for a couple of hours or a few hours in the evening was all for naught, as far as going up to Columbia and to Skyrim,
Sure, come here.
where the supposed ley lines cross, and I'm disappointed in that. But before we leave in the morning, we're going to run one more experiment tonight and see what goes on there.
On the last night of the trip, the Surratts and their North Carolina guests attempted an experiment upstairs in the Richards living room. There was more light here than in the isolation area in the basement. The group gathered around a TV tray with enough lights for the video camera to pick up an image. However, after several moments of trying, it seemed necessary to turn the lights off. In the dark, the North Carolina visitors experienced movement of the table and raps.
Is that blackout?
Can you give us a good levitation?
Is there enough power?
Yep.
Blackout.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's you, Blackout?
The next morning, Elaine cooked breakfast for everyone, while Justine reviewed the experiment of the night before.
The table moved. You had your hand on the table? I had my hand on the table.
And what happened to the table?
Well, it moved. It sort of bumped up and down to answer our questions.
Yeah. And did you feel it?
Yeah, I feel it. I saw it.
You saw it?
There was enough light that I could see it.
Unfortunately, my camera didn't pick it up.
A little bit of movement. No real high levitations or anything. We got a few wraps. Looked like they were conserving energy for healing and stuff.
In the living room, Tom, Jim, and Ted reviewed some of the Richards mini photo albums and experiences. The journey to Rolla soon became more family vacation than spiritual quest. At a tourist attraction, the group stopped to share a few final observations before parting company.
I enjoyed last night's experiment better. It was nice being able to see. The first night was kind of freaky for me because I went directly into that little tiny isolation room and it was already dark and the table was already off the ground. Plus those humpy-back crickets are not my favorite things. And last night it was really neat to be able to see it happen.
So what happened last night?
The table tipped and the spirits talked, and Black Elk hopefully healed Ted.
I think that was a start. What I want to see now is I want to see a table just levitate by itself, which some of the people that we're with, they have seen that and they have pictures of it, and I'd like to just be eyewitness to it. So that is, I'm still on my quest.
I'm 100% convinced that table levitations are possible.
What convinced you?
The two sessions I had, I was probably 85% convinced after Thursday evening, even though I was a little tired and ragged out from the trip when we had an experiment. But then last night, when the light level was a little more and I could see a little more what was going on, and some of the information conveyed by the wraps from the table, and especially that final movement of the table after it told us it wanted to end, and the movement it made when I know no one was touching it or pushing it in that direction and all, the combination of all of that was the clincher for me.
So tell me, what was the best part about this trip for you?
Oh, let's see. I guess the communion.
The communion with
friends.
With friends?
On this side and the other side.
The social processes Dr. McLennan noticed while observing the Peppers and members of Surratt do not coincide with prevalent theories regarding the nature of religion. People demonstrating the shamanic complex are not regressing back to an infantile state, as Freudian theorists suggest. Their behavior doesn't appear to be derived from a fear of death, nor do they demonstrate religious sentiment associated with group activity, as followers of Emil Durkheim would predict. When they returned home, the Elizabeth City group met sporadically until the Peppers moved to a town outside of Winchester, Virginia. Justine remained in Elizabeth City, where she continues to work as a nurse and read tarot cards.